And we are live, and welcome to Marketing Adventures with Carmel, where we give you tips, insights, and also bring you some amazing entrepreneur and business owners where we interview them and share their story and how they've got over some um, things to get past and be really successful in business. So, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and, of course, the bell so you get reminders. If you're watching this on Facebook or LinkedIn or somewhere similar, make sure you give us a like and put any comments in there. So, allow me to introduce today the amazing guest I have, and it's very early in the morning for her because she's all the way in the UK. So, this is now, Patience, I'm going to double check if I can pronounce your last name correctly. So, it's Patience Agunbunda? No,
Yes,
Agunbunda?
that's fine. Ogumbona. That's fine.
Agunbunda. Ah, I was quite close. Yay! I'm always afraid of mispronouncing somebody's name and making sure I show them respect by doing it properly. So, Patience is the visionary introverted woman, and we're going to be talking today all about how to use introversion as a strength in your business. Most of you would know, if you know me, that I'm fairly extroverted. But introverted business owners are very successful too. So, Patience is an aligned business strategist, transformational coach, speaker, and Amazon best-selling author of the book titled, excuse me, tickle in my throat just as we start, The X Factor, the spiritual secrets behind successful executives and entrepreneurs. So, an amazing and highly skilled woman that we have here today. So, Patience talks a lot to highly skilled, ambitious driven, empathic, introverted female entrepreneurs in particular. And we're going to dive deeper into it. So, Patience is the founder of Aspire Transform, Inspire. Sorry, it's a CPD accredited coach. And so I'm guessing CPD in the UK is a qualification. Here in Australia, that I'm guessing it'll be different.
Yes,
And
an
Patience
accreditation body.
was also a quarter and semi-finalist in John Maxwell Stagetime speaking competition and a businesswoman of the year finalist. So we're going to dig more deeply into that. And also, you've had some bespoke trainings and round table discussions in places like Orlando, Las Vegas, the UK, Nigeria, and Costa Rica. So you're a well rounded woman from all over the world. But first and foremost, welcome to Marketing Adventures with Carmel.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and share some quality time and rich conversations with you.
Yes, absolutely. And look, guys, sometimes we have a little bit of a lag in some of the internet connection, but that's okay. We're going to muddle through because there may be a little bit of a lag. So just keep your ears peeled and listen intently. So tell us a little bit about you, Patience, and how kind of, a shortened version of your journey of how you've come to be where you are right now.
Okay, I think you've said quite a few things already, and thank you for that nice introduction. In terms of my journey, obviously, I started off in the corporate world and was there for over 15 years as a internal auditor, chartered accountant, chartered internal auditor. So obviously, I realized that I had more potential and more to give. And so I dived, and they said, you take the leap, and started growing my wings on the way down, like somebody said, or on the way up, whichever way you want to put it, and got into entrepreneurship. And as time went on in 2020, what I usually call the year of the introvert, because there is a scene in The Lord of the Rings where it says the era of the elves is over and the era of men has arrived, with that kind of Gandalf voice. So I tend to use my Gandalf voice to say 2020 was the era where the introverts arrived. And I think that was the year where I kind of took some time out and realized that I have a lot of lived experiences that could benefit another introverted woman who is struggling to step out, who is struggling to have presence, who is struggling to position herself in the marketplace. So I decided to niche down and rebrand. And that was where the visionary introverted woman was born. And the visionary element plays to my strength, which is that I'm very bigger picture, I'm very visionary, and I help people expand their vision beyond their current reality, where some people are quite focused on reality and that stops them from moving forward. So that's me, and obviously supporting introverted female entrepreneurs as well as leaders, because a lot of women aspire into that leadership position. And when they're introverted, they feel like, no, I cannot be a leader because I'm quiet and I'm not very forceful, or I don't have that masculine energy.
Yeah.
So I bring that to the table as well. So that's
Awesome.
roughly my journey.
Yeah. So what was it that when you were in corporate, what was it that triggered you leaving? Like, so quite often I talk to people and they say, "Oh my God, this happened," or "the boss was this," or "I was retrenched," or I was made redundant." What was it for you that was that turning point that made you go, "No, something's got to change"?
I think for me, it was more of I started changing when my mom died in 2015. So I started evolving into somebody else. I started asking myself, what really is the meaning of life and what would I live, because she died very young. And so even though I was in corporate, and at the time I started pushing myself even further to actually attain higher heights. But at the same time, I started asking myself, what else is not being fulfilled within this environment? And that was when I found coaching. And because I found coaching and coaching made a difference to my life, I started to explore that. And that was when I joined the John Maxwell team at the time. And as you well know, in life, when you taste something, you start to progress and you start to see who you are gradually. So the leap kind of came after I decided, as a result of my growth, I was able to start climbing up the ladder. And I then finally wanted to move up to a higher level. But at the same time, I wanted to run my business. And the higher level I wanted had a lot of pockets of things in it. Like I wanted to travel the world and go around visiting different countries, understanding things about them. So this was quite a high pressure job that I was looking to, as I was aspiring to go to. At the same time, I wanted to run my business, which would involve a global brand.
Yes.
Then again, I had another episode of losing somebody very dear and close to me. And at work, I kind of was missing from work for a while. And so I just decided at some point, with everything that was going on, that I needed to go out there, take a leap, and explore
Yeah.
setting up my business, and actually seeing whether being my own boss allowed me even bigger expression, because I started training people and they were getting results even while I was working. And I thought, this is fueling a lot of passion in me and lighting
Yeah.
a fire that I'm not getting in this environment. And I had to
Yeah.
choose. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. And it's interesting because, and I know too well myself, having a death or something like that that really interrupts your flow, and you kind of go, hang on, what is the meaning of life? Why am I playing this small game? What's in the way? So
Mm.
awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So tell me what there's a lot of people throw around the terms introvert and extrovert. And I used to be one of these people myself that I would think, oh, an extrovert is this kind of person and an introvert's the quiet or whatever. And that's not true. So, from your perspective, can you give us an insight into what's the difference between introvert and extrovert in your understanding?
Yes. So the difference for me comes from how we process stimulation, especially external stimulation. So for the extrovert, it can cope with a lot of loud noise, and they can cope with a lot of, with a lot of loud things,
Yeah.
and it doesn't impact on them their energy levels are high when they find themselves in environments that are quite fast paced and quite energetic, whereas the introvert will be regarded more as somebody who struggles to deal with a lot of external stimulation and needs downtime and quiet time, and probably processes things a lot slower than the extrovert would, and needs that time to process. That's why the quietness comes in, because they need to listen to the thoughts that are in the head and going on and whirling in there. And sometimes what surprises people is they think it's only about noise, external stimulation like light, like very strong smells. Those things also have impact from what I have read, but I have experienced personally and used to feel very odd about, because I would have headaches from very strong perfumes. And I didn't relate that to introversion.
Right.
Whereas other people would be like, that's what makes me on fire. And I'd be like, I need to stay away from that.
Yeah.
Light was another thing that was quite an interesting one that I didn't realize could relate to. So, very strong reactions to very strong things in the environment. Maybe more time to think through things before you can react to them. And then the extrovert is quicker in reacting to things, copes a lot with a lot of noise and stimulation, and survives very well in open office and thrives with the noise around. The
Yeah.
extrovert just needs a different environment. Yes. So
Yeah.
generally,
I,
that's the definition.
I have found myself, it's how they process information. So for me as an extrovert, and I would classify myself as an extrovert, I get stimulated by external actions. You're so right. By being with people and having lots of conversations and all things going at once, my mind seems to go really fast. I get power by that. I get as if I'm a battery. You plug me into that, I get invigorated. Whereas I know I have some more introverted friends, they can do that and they'll be exhausted for the rest of
Mm,
the day,
yes.
because there's an internal process has to be done then as well. And because
Yes.
quite often people think that as an introvert you can't be chatty, and it's like, no, that's not how it is at all.
I am
um,
very chatty.
yeah, so thank you
So
for sharing that with me. So what? Give us an insight into what some of the successful habits that you have now working for yourself. Like, what has changed that you had to put in place?
I think that one big strong one is the use of introspection, being
Yeah,
able to look within for the answer and take time to really dig deep. I find that, not that I'm saying that, because this is a spectrum, as we all know, that extroversion and introversion is a
yeah,
spectrum. There is the extreme bit and there is the middle point, and some people are on the middle scale, and there is the center, which is ambivert, they call them.
yes,
And I can class myself as an ambivert many times, but I always say at the core, I'm introverted. So at
right,
the core, an extrovert can be an ambivert, but they will be an extrovert at the core when it
yes,
comes to core things.
yeah.
So basically, that that is one of the key elements of thinking about when you. I think the question was around success or around
Yeah, what kind of
processes.
success habits have you put into place to make
Yes.
sure
So
that your
basically,
energy
introspection.
is low?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So introspection,
Yeah.
being introspective is one of them. Being able to look inwards. That was not something I regarded as a gift, but
Right.
gradually, as I tuned into the fact that it's a strength, it allows me to be more intuitive. Sometimes people think that's very woo-woo, in a sense, when you come up with things that people are not seeing. It's like seeing beyond what people are seeing, hearing beyond what people are hearing. So that's one strength. Another strength that I know, not that extroverts don't have it, but it's known that because introverts can slow down, slow the pace down, and they need to then persevere to get to the end, and they have that persistence or that persevering strength. to just keep going at something until they get to that destination. And I believe that I have that, and I work with my clients to see results because I know that I can carry them along, to that
Yeah.
end point, even when they feel that things are not working. So those are probably two of the main ones that I started to tap into, especially in my work, intuitively helping people to strategize on bringing their ideas to life,
Mm.
then helping them to persevere through the journey to get to the end goal. Those things I started bringing into my
Yeah.
career.
So when we talk about how to use introversion as a strength in your business, so while kind of intellectually we'll have an idea of what introversion is, sitting thinking about it, and for an extreme extrovert, it's like, oh my God, do I have to sit and think about it? But how do you use that introversion as a strength for somebody who may be introverted, but they actually don't know that process of, recognizing it as a gift? One of the things, for example, my background is hospitality. And for many, many years, I was always a person that was sent to deal with complaints, for example. And I just thought, it's good old fashioned Irish hospitality. That's what I do. But the truth was, I actually had a gift to build rapport and trust really easily.
Mm,
Now, when I recognized that in hindsight, like many years later, that was a gift, it wasn't just the gift of the gab, it actually was a way of being.
mm,
Then you can start looking at it and go, oh, that is a strength of mine. Let me use it, that it will expand and help and support people. So
mm.
when you say introversion is like a strength or a gift, for somebody who is introverted but doesn't realize that's a gift yet, how can they start using that as a strength in their business?
I think the first thing is, um, many times, more often, introverts see introversion as a flaw and see it as a disadvantage in the workplace or
All
anything
right.
like that. So the first thing is to give yourself permission to make it a strength,
Right.
because once you feel flawed, you don't feel like you are empowered. So the first thing is giving yourself permission to say, being an introvert doesn't make me flawed. I don't need to be cured. I just need to find where my strength zone lies.
Yeah.
So one thing I then say is understanding that because your capability to listen more deeply, and one of the interesting things when you say, okay, I'm an extrovert, yet I love rapport and connection. Connection is another key thing that introverts are very good at, deep
Yeah.
connections, because they like fewer friends, fewer people rather than large crowds. And then they form that lasting, deep relationships with them. So being able to tap into that is valuable because you can build that rapport, that connection. But with the ability to do the listening and the quietness, knowing that sometimes you need
Oh,
to tap into that to come out with real nuggets. They say that sometimes you need to listen as a coach, for example, beyond what someone is saying,
yes.
that what they are not saying. By listening, by doing that deep listening, you can pick it up. So you realize that being an introvert, you are actually good at that deep listening. And if you can tap into that, you can use it in your business, you can use it in the things that you do. Of course, I have to caveat all of these with the fact that you also have to add your other elements of your personality. Because, like for me, for example, doing this work, I realized that what else is underneath the surface that you can add, and one plus one, multiplies it by doing things like the disc personality profiling. It will bring out other strengths. So for me, when I say that I'm an aligned business strategist, is because that's the next level of my strength. Is apart from being a visionary, I'm very strategic and strategist and help people plot, put things together and all that stuff. So you need to look beyond just, okay, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert, to look at those other qualities that actually amplify your ability to do your work properly.
Yeah. So if we were to talk about three areas for somebody who's an introvert doesn't know, it's number one is to make it a strength. Give yourself permission to make it a strength, that it's
Yeah.
not a bad thing. Number two is listen deeply. And then number three is to tap into your other strengths that complement it. Would that be right?
Yes, yes, exactly.
And I'm very familiar with DISC myself. I
Mm,
was introduced to it many years ago, and then I studied it and became qualified to teach it and do it as well. And it has been as a behavioral profiling, rather than a lot of profiles are personality profile, but DISC as a behavioral profiling tool.
mm,
When you keep in mind it doesn't put anyone into a box, it
yes.
actually does give you insight into how to communicate with the other person as well. It's not just about knowing your own profile, it's
Mm,
knowing the parts of the profile that another person may be. So, for
mm,
example, somebody who's quite direct and maybe extroverted, the best way to talk to them is in direct terms instead of
mm,
being softly around it. So it's meeting people where they are and communicating in that way too, I would imagine.
exactly. Yeah.
Cool. So what are some of the business habits that you've put into place in order for you to maintain and keep successful?
Okay, I would say making sure that I do reviews and do the whole goal setting or looking back is very important. I did a video earlier in the year where I talked about you need to look back and project forward because you
Yes.
look back to be able to gain uh, hindsight and then you look forward to foresight with foresight, right? So I think those are the things that I've been able to look at and use within my business. The other thing is making sure that I'm building routines. It's not just cliche. It's kind of like it's very important that you have routines that work for you, that build in both your personal areas that you want to focus on as well as your business areas, because I found that when I was working, that was possible and easier to do because obviously you had to turn up at work at 9 o'clock, or else you're fired. So
Yes.
but when you become your own boss, you think that that freedom gives you the fluidity, but you're responsible for everything and you need to have a start
Yes.
time and end time and put things in place to make sure
Yeah.
that you are
And
delivering.
be disciplined with it,
Yes,
because and
yes,
that was, as an extrovert, that was one of my biggest challenges, I'll be honest, because I was like, oh, I'll go here. Oh no, bright shiny syndrome
yes,
is, in this terms, I'm a high I. So I
yes.
was like, oh, I'll just do this. And I found that I actually worked better when I did put a structure around me, and when I had flexibility in it as well, but I kind of stuck to the structure, and the discipline and consistency in it is really important too.
Exactly. So that structure, routines, those are the things that gradually help you to actually build that sustainable and solid business.
Yeah.
The other thing is learning to make technology your friend, so that you can
Yes.
automate and make
Yeah.
life easier. And one of my goals and full ambition is to say at the touch of a button. So
Yeah.
basically, at the touch of a button, everything just aligns and works as it should. So I think those are
Yeah.
the three things that I would say are key things that I work on, keep working on, keep putting in progress to make sure that I'm successful in business.
Beautiful. Tell me, what is your top um, piece of technology that you love? What one could you not live without right now?
That's an interesting one. I think I can't live without my Google folder because that to me is my online office where
Okay.
I label and put everything in there, and everything is stored in there and it's easy to go in there. You know the folder that is in there and you know where it is. And you just send it forth and that's one of them. I guess with the online business at the moment and the things we are doing, nobody can live without either Zoom or StreamYard or
Yeah.
any of the things where you can get in touch, where you can do your calls, where you can do all the things you need to do.
Yeah.
The other one I use at the moment for project management, for communicating with people who work with me in a team, and for streamlining, tasks and activities is Trello. So I
Yeah.
use, some people would have Monday. I find that Trello gradually. getting used to using it to be able to delegate, to be able to provide feedback, to be able to then monitor my own projects and activities as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I use Asana for
Mm.
Asana similar to it's interesting. The first thing I would say if somebody asked me that question is the internet is the first thing because without the internet we don't have. How spoiled are we? I know I'm in Australia now, but when I came to Australia first, we used to ring our parents like it might be once a month, and you'd have to put
Yeah,
money on a phone card and blah 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 to look at us. You know what I mean?
yeah,
You're in the UK, I'm in Australia. I was talking to the US last week. I think I was talking to Germany the week before. That the world is so much smaller, and you're right. Without Zoom or like here StreamYard or something similar, like it'd be hard to communicate. But yeah, I have some apps of being able to put my ideas into one place because that
mm,
used to be an issue. They'd be on bits of paper everywhere. So things like Airtable and so many different tools. And that's the
mm,
thing, there's so many different tools to play with, and
yeah.
they take a little bit of time to learn sometimes to do them.
Oh, a lot of time, if you're not wired, as you know, with disc, if you're not wired in that way, if you're not maybe a high C and you're
Yeah,
a high I, more high I and S without the C element, you might struggle with things like tech and things like detail. And being aware of
yeah,
that means you either give yourself more time or you actually
yeah.
delegate it. Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And for those of you watching, if you're not familiar with DISC, and this is not going to do it any service at all, but just
No.
it's DISC as in DISC, and the very shortened version of it is D is for dominance. It's quite, strong, big picture kind of person, very direct. I is the influencer, a bit of the joker, but very big picture as well. Very people orientated, but not very detailed. And
Mm,
then S is very steadfast. They're more of the mother archetype kind of thing. They don't want to rock the boat too much, but they want to look after everyone and make sure that they're okay. And the C's are almost like your lab technicians. Put them in a room with a white coat and they'll just make sure that everything's right and all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So, we're all a mixture of all of those things. But for me, I'm an I and a D. So I have no detail. No. So it's
that's good
been, yeah,
because I'm an I and an S, and I was going to say that technically, you many times the high S's and the high C's are usually the ones that you would immediately say actually they are introverted because
yes.
they tend to be more quieter
Yeah.
than the I's that are very gregarious and very. I am an I and an S, so obviously the loudness
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
So yeah.
At times, yeah. But that's interesting. And what I want people to take away from this part of it, if we're talking about disc, is I said earlier, it's not putting you into a box. Just know that if you're DIS, it doesn't actually matter. It gives you an insight into where you're able to work easily. It doesn't mean you cannot do the other things. It just means, as Patience said earlier, you give yourself more time or you give yourself more space to do it. Or, for example, I work in hospitality. I used to have the very kind of lab technician type people working with me. It wasn't good for them, for their energy to have all this noise. So
Mm,
we would put some things in place on their way home to take half an hour out just for them. And that would bring into balance. So you can do whatever you like, but just remember it's a learned behavior then. You have to learn it and put a little bit of effort into learn it. So I don't want
mm,
anyone going away going, oh my God, I sound like I'm a C, so I better not do anything gregarious. It doesn't mean that. It just gives you insight into where you can sit into your flow a lot easier and be re-energized is probably the
mm.
best way to do. Would you agree?
Yes, and that's why I said it's like putting layers upon layers. I'm an
Yeah,
introvert, yes. Doesn't mean that everything that applies to introverts that is limiting applies to me. Because when I then add my personality and I look at all those other elements, they can play a part in balancing it out. Or I just need to know how well rounded. We are very well rounded, most of us as
yes,
human beings. We just
yeah,
need to tap into that and bring ourselves into wholeness and
yeah,
oneness. So it's not a box, it's just that wholeness of giving yourself so many tools from who you are to kind of live and thrive. That's the way I
yeah.
see it.
And one of the things that has always stuck with me, that somebody said, is you can't read the label from inside the box. So
Mm,
that's why sometimes you need somebody externally to say, hey, here are your gifts. Hey, this is what you can do.
yeah.
So in the business that you're doing and how you're helping people, how important is video within that business?
I think video builds trust. That's what I think. If you can't see people, and even then, I've said it in somewhere else that many people I work with, they start off coming to me and I can't see a profile image on their socials. And I'm
Yeah,
thinking I wouldn't click on like or I wouldn't click on connect because I don't know if you're real or if you're not. And I'm not just protecting myself, I'm protecting my connections
yeah,
because this when people do all this spamming and all that stuff, they use you against your connections. So if I
yeah,
don't see your picture, if I can't see maybe social life or something going on there that I can relate to, then I would be a bit weary of saying we can connect. So
yeah,
the same thing with video. I think you get to also express your personality and connection. And in the jobs that we do, like those personal services that you offer, people want to connect from that authentic person. They want to see you. It gives you a wider reach with your
yeah,
message. Yeah.
absolutely.
And it's something that people need over and above. Many people don't like reading as much because it takes more brain power. But
Yeah,
watching a video has two benefits. It allows you to kind of see the person, connect with the person, but it can serve as entertainment as well. So
yes,
take away the strain. All you're doing is watching a video, and maybe
yeah,
when something grabs your attention, then you focus more on it. But with the
yeah,
reading, it's a bit different. So I think it's very powerful, and I tend to encourage my introvert clients that give it a go because it also helps you to get your messaging right. The more
mm,
you have to practice it, to say it, to own it, then the better. It's not easy and you don't have to always be on it. There are ways and strategies that you can apply to be
yeah.
everywhere without being everywhere. So,
Oh, absolutely. Because it's interesting you say that. As you know, I teach video as part of one of the things we teach. And we do teach a lot of introverts video. We're going how
mm,
to make videos for your business, and you don't even have to be on camera,
mm,
because there's ways of doing it that are make them entertaining, engaging, and that the emotional message talks directly to that ideal client as well.
mm,
And
mm,
it's just, you can still build trust by actually knowing who they are, putting a little bit of you at the end. Like, there's lots of ways to do it, but there certainly is the way to go, because so many people are used to Zoom calls, StreamYard, all of that. So they're used to, at the push of a button, being able to see the person and talk to them. So I think we have to incorporate that in our
mm.
marketing as well if we want to keep up. Also, I look at the time. I think we could talk forever. So let me know, patience. So if people wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that? Is that via Facebook or via email?
Well, I would like to say I'm on all social media platforms. Name it, I'm there. At least not that I'm completely active, but you can find me there. However, you can also email me because I love to email back. I love that conversation. Love to keep
Right.
conversations going. So connect at patienceogumbana.com is a good way to reach me if you want to reach me.
Okay, beautiful. So if anybody would like to contact Patience, and also this is her Facebook handle. Now, I always like to ask my guests a question at the end of the interview. And the question is, if you weren't doing what you're doing right now, what would you be doing instead?
Hmm. You mentioned hospitality, right? I've always thought that I would love to own a resort and
Right.
just manage that resort. And the idea is the hospitality, giving people an experience. So I guess, being high eyes, we like adventure and we like creating experiences for people. And I feel like I love creating experiences because experiences last a lifetime. You'd
Yeah.
carry it with you in your heart. So that's the next thing that I'll be doing. What I'm doing currently really encompasses a lot because I speak, I can write. So there's variety in it for me already. So if I
Yeah.
was to do something else, I'll go to hospitality. And obviously, I'll spend time with people, but I'll also then take a long break afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, because we like to enjoy ourselves too. We don't like just creating experience for other people. We like experience for ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm very much an explorer.
Mm.
I seem to have a tickle today, and it's got nothing to do with the fact that it's 42 degrees here in Perth, Western
Oh,
Australia.
oh.
So do excuse me, and I'm talking a lot, obviously.
Mm.
So, patients, I would like to take this opportunity to say a humongous thank you for hopping on the call with me.
Thank you for having me.
It's been terrific to talk to you. You're very, very welcome. And guys, if you want to, sometimes people are watching live, sometimes you're watching afterwards. If you're watching later, put something in the comments and myself or Patience will absolutely get back to you. Make sure that you tag us. If you're putting it in YouTube as well, make sure that you put the comments in. I'll be checking them. And if there's any questions you have, let us know. But for now, it's bye from me.
Bye. Thank you.